2020. Josh Pate is going to be there this weekend. Danny Kanell joins us as well. Josh, this is your very first stop on the Late Kick Every Given Saturday tour. What is your bold prediction for this matchup?
I think it's going to be the game of the week, actually, across the entire board. Now, I'm not looking at these big upsets that could come out of nowhere. That will steal the attention. But I think the actual game itself, I was talking to Danny right before we came on air. I'm trying to find people who have picked Cincinnati to win the game, because there are bigger underdogs out there who I've seen money line action on. I can't find anyone, whether they be fans with their money on Cincinnati or actual folks in the media with their money on Cincinnati. But it's weird, Hassel, because you just teed it up. This is not even a touchdown spread, and the game's in Fayetteville, which means odds makers are just disseminating to you this would kind of be a field goal game on a neutral. Even with Desmond Ridder gone from Cincinnati, even with all those defensive backs gone, I've never been to a game at Arkansas, so I'm really excited about this. I think the crowd will be at a fever pitch. Little dry wedge, lower humidity in here, so it won't be excruciatingly hot. But what I think is there are probably a lot of really good players on that Cincinnati team because they are supreme evaluators and developers. We just don't know their names nationally yet. I think Cincinnati is going to end up falling, but competitively. And I think at the end of the day, you'll look at Arkansas and say, that's a good team, but man, that Cincinnati crew, wow, they're going to be right in the thick of things again this year.
Oh, Josh, I love you. I think it's a good game, but I don't think it's anywhere close to a top game of the weekend, especially when it's all said and done, the dust settles, and we're looking at a 7-5 Arkansas team. We're saying, really? We thought that was the best of the weekend, opening weekend had to offer? Some people do like Cincinnati, obviously, because that number came from 7.5. It's down around 6 right now. I'd probably be one of those that love Cincinnati with that 7.5 point spread. But I'll tell you what, I want a game that has a little more intrigue, just as great an environment. And I didn't know that, like, weather conditions, I didn't know you were kind of like highfalutin, like you had to have not too much humidity. I want to go to a place where it's going to play a factor in the game. I'm going to go to a place where they named it the Swamp because it's going to be those swamp-like conditions. And guess what? The TV executives think it's going to be pretty good, too, because that's the one in prime time. I think you're going to see the Florida Gators and the Utah Utes put on the show of the weekend. You've got national title implications with Utah as a favorite to win the Pac-12 potentially. They bring in a Heisman contender and Cam Rising to Gainesville, a Pac-12 team going into SEC territory because we all know the SEC is not going outside of it. And then you've got the potential breakout party for Anthony Richardson, the superstar quarterback. We know about his recruiting prowess. We know what a highly touted recruit he was. Fell short a little bit, but I think Billy Napier has really infused a lot of confidence in him. He's built an offense around him where I think you're going to see him showcase not only his athleticism, but his insane arm strength. And you could see an upset with the Gators winning at home. Man, that's the game of the weekend for me.
Yeah, Florida hosting Utah, that is a good matchup as well. I'm glad neither one of you picked Notre Dame, Ohio State, or Oregon, Georgia, because those two games have potential to be blowouts, even though they are top 12 matchups and getting the majority of the shine going into this first week of college football. All right, we're continuing on with our bold predictions here from Josh Pate. Danny Kanell with us as well. Last game of the weekend, Josh, is Clemson and Georgia Tech. They're playing it in the Dome in Atlanta. And when I heard this was going to be part of your bold predictions, I was like, no. There's no way that Josh is going to say Georgia Tech is going to win this game as a 3-score dog. That's not happening, right?
That is not happening,
okay,
even I'm not that bold. But what I do think is I think that at some point in this game, Cade Klubnik's going to get on the field. Now, this is not anything that coaching staff has really pushed up against. At this point, he's been good enough in fall camp, and I don't think DJ Uiagalelei has made this massive quantum leap in production to where they're just going to sit there and hitch their wagon blindly to DJ. They, as a coaching staff, have told you, whether it's Streeter, the new offensive coordinator, or Dabo Swinney, the head coach, Cade Klubnik, our true freshman 5-star quarterback, is going to play. I wonder, because this is the drumbeat. It's very soft right now, but this is the drumbeat out of Clemson, that when he gets on the field and when you finally get to see what some of the insiders around that program have seen throughout fall camp, it's going to become apparent that eventually Cade Klubnik's going to be QB1 for them. And what I'm thinking to myself is, if they have the same issues offensively they had last year, Danny, you know as well as I do, man, we didn't have to wait for them to play top 5 competition to be exposed last year. They were struggling against inferior rosters because they couldn't complete passes. They had inaccuracy. They did not have the dynamic receiver presence they used to. If that's still a problem this year, we won't have to wait. Like, we may see it in week 1 against Georgia Tech, and here's what I'm wondering. If it's a slog fest, which is a word I'd like to debut today, if it's a slog fest in week 1 against Georgia Tech and they get to the half and it's like 13-9, last year they had no backup option. This year they know they have one. I wonder how quick, or how short rather, that leash is this year, because I think we're going to see Cade Klubnik eventually, and I think by the time they play FSU in mid-October, I think he'll be the starter for that team.
Wasn't one of those games they played down to against Georgia Tech where I think they only won 14-6 or 14-8? It was a weird score,
right.
But Georgia Tech was in that game and had no business being there. I agree with you on this bold take. I got an even bolder one for you in a second, but I think one of two things are going to happen. You're either going to see DJ Uiagalelei improve, or you're going to see a switch. And I would tend to go with you, because we've had a whole entire season of DJ Uiagalelei, and the play was bad. I mean, you hate to rip on college kids, but they were held back. 11 touchdowns and 10 interceptions would get you benched at most lower-tier MAC teams. They really didn't have another option to go to at quarterback. So I felt bad for DJ at times, because as a quarterback, sometimes you need to get benched. Like, get your breath and take a relief and watch somebody else struggle. They didn't have that option last year. This year they do. So either we buy into what Dabo's selling at ACC Media Days, that, you know, DJ's going to be back like he was in high school and back like he was against Notre Dame, or you'll see a switch to Cade Klubnik, and no matter what the case, no matter what the scenario is, they will get better quarterback play without question. Here's the bolder take. Will Shipley has a chance to win the Heisman Trophy, and you can get his odds at extremely long shots, 50-1 at some books. I saw it at 100-1 at others. As much as we talk about the quarterback, I don't think that's going to be the identity of this team. This defense is otherworldly. Questions at quarterback, whether it's DJ or it's Cade Klubnik. You know who they got in the backfield? A former 5-star who also started to take over this offense last year. I think they're going to hammer the rock. I think they're going to have a featured back, and Will Shipley is going to put up big numbers. And I think Clemson's going to be in that national conversation. And I think Will Shipley could be somebody that's getting that invite to New York at the end of the year.
Can't not let Pate follow there when I saw him raise the buys. Pate, what's your reaction to Danny saying Shipley could win the Heisman?
So he comes out of high school last year, Will Shipley, and I was among the crowd that got louder as the season approached that said, man, he's just going to go 1,500 yards plus this year. He'll be a breakout guy. And he had some injury crop up last year. Now, as Danny said, he's still closed strong, really good player. Have no doubt about his physical potential. From the neck up, he's everything they need him to be and more. Sometimes when these guys don't become freshman All-Americans, the natural tendency is to just kind of move on from them. But Danny's right. Like, his stance here, I think, is the accurate stance. It's probably more likely that the guy comes in, learns, injury, maybe if it crops up, is part of freshman learning curve, and then boom, sophomore, especially when they'll need him this year. That's the kind of guy. Zach Evans at Ole Miss is that way. He's the kind of guy, Shipley's the kind of guy that could just explode and change the course of a season.
We're getting bold predictions here from Josh Pate and Danny Kanell. We're going to get an upset pick from both of you right now. Josh, are you willing to go with either one of those marquee games that are double-digit spreads between top 15 teams?
I'm not quite willing to go there. My strategy here, as I've spelled out to you before, Christopher, and I'll put it out there for Danny now, is make your upset picks on Thursday, because you get to look like the early genius if you're right, and everyone forgets about it by Sunday morning if you're wrong. So we've got the backyard brawl returning on Thursday night. It is a very interesting dynamic because Pat Narduzzi won the ACC last year at Pitt. And then he promptly threw his offensive coordinator under the bus on the way out the door in Whipple, and he said, oh, you didn't play the style that I wanted to last year. Because as we know, winning a conference doesn't matter. It's if you feel comfortable in the way you win the conference that matters, apparently. So I think they're going to recommit to running the ball. I've been back and forth with Pitt fans all day about this because they think it's all tongue-in-cheek. I don't. But here's what I'm looking for. If Pitt is committed to a run-first approach again, West Virginia for the past couple of seasons has really put an emphasis on beefing up and getting bigger along the defensive front, because the secret in the Big 12 is it's not a pinball league anymore. A lot of folks are playing very physically out there, in some cases the kind of style that you used to attribute to Big 10 and SEC football. And I think it could be a confluence at just the right time of West Virginia having the size necessary to stand up along the line of scrimmage. If they can do that, and JT Daniels debuts at quarterback and hits some shots down the field, which Pitt is prone to giving up in years past, 7.5 to 7, that's what the line is on this game right now, depending on where you look. I would like to take this opportunity to predict Neil Brown's West Virginia Mountaineers to win this game outright.
I'm not touching any game with JT Daniels at quarterback. In fact, I might take an alt line and tease this up to like 14 and just lay the points with Pitt. I know Graham Harrell's back there with him, but I got to see JT Daniels stay healthy and thrive. I mean, he couldn't keep a job at Georgia with all that talent, and now he's going to succeed there at West Virginia. I'm not buying it. All right, you want bold? I'm going to give you bold, because Florida State, we're going to be talking about them on Monday, about the performance that they put on the national stage.
But hang on,
an
they're
SEC.
3-point dogs. Is that really that bold?
I mean,
that's not
what
more
kind
bold
of
than
operation
God.
are we running here? Thank you, Hassel. Thank you.
Wait a second. Have we not watched Florida State, how far the program has fallen, where they can't even get to a bowl game? They lose against the whiffed onside kick last year to the Gators. If the Florida State Seminoles are playing against the SEC, it is a massive upset, considering all the trash talk I get from that conference. And they have to go into one of the most hostile environments. At least that's what I hear from these LSU fans. It is basically a home game in New Orleans, in the Dome. You know they're going to travel. But here's why I like the Noles in this one. For the first time in some time, I actually got to sit back and watch them versus an FCS opponent handle their business, showcase some depth on the offensive line, shuttling 13, 14 guys deep on the offensive line, able to overcome some injuries in camp. 3 100-yard rushers. The first time that's ever happened in Florida State history. I was a part of some blowouts. We used to put up 70. That was our magic number. We never saw 3 100 yards of rushers in a game. It's never happened before. But here's the secret weapon, and here's what I'm so glad you did not see against Duquesne. Jordan Travis, one of the more athletic quarterbacks in the country. He's got some wheels. Mike Norvell is a sneaky game planner. I think he's going to utilize Jordan Travis's legs to his advantage, which opens up some cleaner passes. We've seen Florida State pull off some upsets, bigger upsets than this before, against top 5 North Carolina and others. I think they get it done on the big stage. And don't take away from my boldness getting to pick on my Florida State Seminoles, all right?
So that's just a reach into the chest and extending your heart out, because that's what just spoke there. So first off, congratulations to Chris Hassel doing the right thing and calling out the unboldness of the pick. That's like saying it's going to rain sometime next week, Kanell. Yes, it will. Let me tell you why I think you're wrong, though. Mason Smith is a guy that, kind of like Will Shipley, comes out of high school for LSU, he's a big 5-star guy, and doesn't immediately light the world on fire. They love where he is developmentally. You also know, if you followed Florida State this fall, they've had some problems along the interior of the offensive line. Now, they hope they're getting healthy there, but I really think 2 mismatches determine this game for LSU. Number one, I think there are some mismatches along the lines of scrimmage favor LSU defensive line. And number 2, I think LSU's receiver room could be well positioned to take advantage of a leaky secondary here. Now, FSU's got some size at receiver too. That's why I think the score may be a little bit higher here than the total indicates, but I got to side with LSU on that one. Kanell, do you love, by the way, how those SEC teams make you come to Louisiana or make you come to Atlanta to play that neutral site game? How hospitable is that?
I mean, it's no wonder every year they have the most teams bowl eligible. They schedule all these games at home, and then they get cupcakes in their bye weeks. I mean, it just sets up perfectly for them. Genius plan, though, by Greg Sankey to do this so that they have those winning records at the end of the season.
Well, Danny,
but not this one.
If you're right, your team is going to be a third of the way to bowl eligibility already after week 1 this season. Florida State looking to go 2-0. Danny Kanell, Josh Pate with us here. They each have their own podcast. The Late Kick with Josh Pate getting first billing today. Had a brand new episode last night. You can find that on the YouTube page and the Facebook page, where you can also watch it live. And then he'll be live again tomorrow night and on Sunday. Cover 3 podcast. I just saw Danny and Chip and Tom record a brand new one earlier this afternoon. Those guys discussing the many quarterback battles still raging just days before kickoff.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.